This region of the United States is often forgotten about within the sports world, which is crazy since it's home to one of the most populated cities in the country. But to be a forgotten area, there must be something noteworthy in the first place. This is the city of Jacksonville. It's home to the NFL's Jaguars, and that's pretty much it. Besides having a franchise in the world's richest league, there's not much else going on in the city when it comes to major professional sports. Why is that? If you're familiar with the NFL, you know that pretty much every franchise in the league is situated in a sizable city. Like any successful sports franchise, metropolitan areas dictate where teams are and how many teams it can support. It's why the biggest metro centers in the US have at least 2 or 3 teams competing in the Big 4 sports leagues. And it's also why massive hubs like New York, LA, or Chicago sometimes have multiple teams playing in the same league. However, in the NFL, a powerhouse league when it comes to generating revenue, only 2 teams are based in cities that don't have any other major professional franchises. One is the Green Bay Packers, the other is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Packers, based in Green Bay, Wisconsin, play in a metro area of just 320,000 people. That's by far the smallest center with a major pro team within the United States. The key driver that's helped the team become so successful in such a small market is its long-standing history in the NFL, as well as the fact that it's publicly owned by the fans. So moving the team to a larger city is quite difficult since the community has a say of its own. But regardless of the small community, the Packers are still one of the most strongly supported NFL teams. This is partly due to the fact that it's the sole franchise in Wisconsin, as well as its prior success. Historical relevance goes a long way in carving out a team's identity. But that doesn't explain why Jacksonville only has the NFL's Jaguars. Unlike the Packers, who for decades on end have been the only NFL team based in their own state, the Jaguars, on the other hand, are one of the league's newest franchises and don't benefit from having statewide support, since Tampa Bay and Miami both have teams of their own. Even Orlando, who benefit from having the Magic, Orlando City SC, along with Disney World, appears to have a lot more to offer than the northeast region of Florida. So why in the world does Jacksonville have an NFL team? Let's get one thing out of the way. Jacksonville is deceiving. Here's an outline of the city of Jacksonville. It's fairly substantial. Within this border lives nearly 1 million residents. That makes Jacksonville in or around the top 10 highest populated cities within the United States, putting it above Washington, D.C., San Francisco, Boston, Detroit, and many others that have sports teams in several top leagues. But the difference between Jacksonville and the rest of these cities is what's outside of its borders. As mentioned earlier, Jacksonville is geographically huge. So huge that it's the second largest city by land area in the country if you don't count cities from Alaska. But for the most part, that's pretty much it. The vast majority of people in Jacksonville's metro area live within the city limits, with very few situated in the handful of towns on the outskirts. The city is so wide and so vast that it's not considered to be inside Duval County. It is Duval County. Luckily, whether you're in Duval County or anywhere else for that matter, you have access to an incredibly easy way to buy sports tickets. And it's all thanks to SeatGeek, who's sponsoring today's video. Football season is officially here, and soon the NFL, MLB, NHL, and NBA will all be in full swing. Knowing that, there's no better time to go see a game. With SeatGeek, you can watch your favorite team play in person without any hassle whatsoever. Here's the best part though. If you use the code MAPIFY10, you'll get 10% off any tickets on SeatGeek, regardless if you're a first-time buyer or a loyal SeatGeek customer. So no matter how many times you've bought tickets through SeatGeek, MapTiler will still get you 10% off your next purchase. Be quick though, because this offer won't last forever. SeatGeek makes it easy to find the best deals. They rate every ticket from 1 to 10, so just look for those green dots to know you're scoring a great deal. You can check it out for yourself. Open the SeatGeek app and use the code MAPIFY10. Click the link in the description below to get access to this amazing discount. This offer will not last forever. Now, back to the video. So despite Jacksonville being vast and relatively populated, the surrounding counties contribute very little to the region's population. But what does all of this have to do with the Jaguars? On the surface, it explains why there's a lack of major professional sports in the region, with there being other cities around the country that can better support more than one franchise. But as we already know, the NFL managed to wriggle its way into the region and awarded it its 30th franchise. Now, bear in mind that Jacksonville's path to securing an NFL team was anything but conventional. It involved playing the long game while having its fair share of stiff competition from other cities that many expected to beat out the one in northeastern Florida. Now, there are concerns that question the Jaguars' existence today, and that will be covered later in this video. But no one can deny Jacksonville deserving the franchise when it was awarded to them in 1993, no matter how big of a surprise it was at the time. For context, 1995 saw the NFL expand from 28 to 30 franchises. It was the league's first expansion since the 70s, so naturally, there was a high demand of untapped markets that wanted to throw their hat into the NFL's ring. The 5 cities that bid for the 2 vacant spots were Charlotte, St. Louis, Baltimore, Memphis, and Jacksonville. From the very get-go, Jacksonville seemed to be the least likely city to get a team. This was due to their small metro population and minimal TV market. It was a huge surprise to most that the city even made it to the final stage of the bidding process. But the clever maneuvers performed in the background gave Jacksonville a chance. These maneuvers began in the late 70s, when Robert Irsay, the owner of the Colts, visited Jacksonville while he was considering moving his team from Baltimore to another city. He was wined and dined by local executives and politicians who longed to promote Jacksonville through sports. The city had consistently hosted the annual Georgia-Florida Gator Bowl every year, but beyond that, Jacksonville's sports scene was fairly hollow. Despite Irsay's visit to northeastern Florida, it was all performative. The Colts owner used Jacksonville as leverage to try to get a better stadium from the city of Baltimore. Nothing came from that meeting in Jacksonville, and Irsay went on to infamously move the Colts in the dead of night to Indianapolis just 5 years later. The city of Jacksonville recognized the intentions from the Colts owner and used it to their benefit. Over the next decade, Jacksonville city officials would attend NFL meetings, host parties for team executives, and openly give tours to franchise owners who continued to use Jacksonville as a negotiation tactic when dealing with their respective cities. So despite being used as a pawn by other owners, this all put Jacksonville on the map, which led to the city becoming one of the final 5 to be considered for NFL expansion. By the way, I have a weekly newsletter now, so subscribe to it if you want to keep up with the world of stadiums and sports geography. There's a link in the description below to get started. And while you're at it, subscribe to this channel and give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. It all goes a long way. Thanks. Skipping ahead to 1993 now, Charlotte became the first city to be awarded a franchise among the 5 finalists. The announcement for the second expansion team was delayed by a month, and some thought it was to allow St. Louis to put in a better bid. But in the end, Jacksonville was selected by the owners, who voted 26-2 in favor of the northeastern Floridian city. This was all thanks to the legwork performed by city officials in the years leading up to the expansion, and it helped that its competitors either couldn't form a viable ownership group or had a history of losing an NFL franchise. Nonetheless, the underdog Jacksonville finally got its professional sports franchise. In the years that followed, Jacksonville replaced its aging Gator Bowl stadium with a brand new one fit for NFL football. It also enjoyed its early success in the late 90s as the team reached the AFC Championship twice in 4 years. This early success helped consolidate a strong fan base in northeastern Florida as well as southeastern Georgia. However, even with the initial breakthrough, the current outlook of the Jacksonville Jaguars remains uncertain.
Jacksonville Jaguars are set to play back-to-back home games in Wembley Stadium in London in the year 2020.
That is not a home game. That is actually the furthest thing away from a home game that is possible in the NFL for Jacksonville. Now,
fast forward to today, the excitement surrounding the Jaguars is now a shadow of what it was during the 90s. The team has had seasons ranging from abysmal to acceptable, but overall, mediocrity has consumed the franchise. This has been reflected through measly attendance figures. Obviously, when the Jaguars have a good season, fans come out in full force. But when there's a lack of sustainable success or an uninspiring project, that's when rumors begin to circulate.
Let me be clear, the Jacksonville Jaguars will move to London.
The Jags aren't the head and shoulders top target to make a move like that.
but for the season ticket holders in Jacksonville, this is definitely something that is a sad situation.
Now, let me clarify that attendance issues in the NFL looks a lot different than in other leagues like Major League Baseball. With less than 10 home games every season, it's difficult to find empty sections in Everbank Stadium since there's plenty of demand meeting the minimal supply. But knowing NFL owners and their eagerness to get up and leave for another city, would the Jaguars ever consider departing from Jacksonville? This is Shahid Khan. He's owned the Jaguars since 2012, and pretty much from the get-go of his tenure, he's had the team participate in the NFL's London games. Barring 2020, the Jaguars have had to play in London every season since 2013, and there's no sign of slowing down. Khan also attempted to purchase Wembley Stadium in 2018. On top of being home to England's national soccer team, the Jaguars have consistently played their games in Wembley when visiting London every year for the past decade. Khan, however, eventually pulled away from his offer. Still though, the Jaguars continue to play one of their 17 regular season games across the pond, and controversially, the event tends to be regarded as a home game for the Jaguars. That's one less game without home field advantage when compared to most other teams. Setting aside the on-field disadvantage due to the lack of homegrown Jaguars fans in the seats, It sends a bad message to the fan base in Jacksonville, who for the past decade have gone without one less home game while their team acts in the interest of the NFL's expansion into the European market. Couple that with the franchise not having the most inspiring performances over the past decade, warning signs point to Jacksonville being the next city to lose an NFL team. As time passes by though, this doesn't seem to be the case. Earlier in this video, it was highlighted that the Jaguars had to fight a clever battle in order to bring a team into one of the league's smallest untapped markets. And as it turns out, the craft to attract a team sometimes needs to be maintained in order to have it compete financially. With two other teams in Florida, along with the Falcons in Atlanta, the Jaguars have plenty of obstacles if they wish to expand their reach beyond Duval County, especially when Florida is home to plenty of transplants who maintain their affiliations to wherever they come from. So under Khan, the team has chosen the road less traveled. Instead of emphasizing its marketing efforts into a saturated region, the Jaguars looked the other way and took advantage of the league's desire to expand into Europe. Meanwhile, the franchise looks to be set on building a new stadium in Jacksonville, which would guarantee the franchise remaining for several decades. This, along with prior investments towards facilities, is a positive sign indicating that the team isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Should the fans feel satisfied with losing a home game every year? Probably not, but let me know what you think about the whole situation in the comments section below. Hindsight is 2020, and while it's too soon to tell how Jacksonville performs commercially overseas in the long run, the approach is reflective of the challenges that comes with having a team in Jacksonville, which is something no major professional franchise has ever experienced. It took creative ways to bring a franchise into the region, and perhaps there needs to be more creativity to grow the team's fanbase. Jacksonville may not have the benefit of being grandfathered into the NFL, similar to that of Green Bay, but it's a city that tends to be overlooked by most people when thinking about Florida's hubs. Being the lone franchise in a small market may appear to be vulnerable to some, but it eventually becomes the center of the community. In Jacksonville's case, it didn't take long for the Jaguars to become the heart of River City, but maybe one day it'll be the heart of London too. Before you go, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and check out other videos on this channel for more content on stadiums and sports geography. A new video is released every month, so be sure to turn on notifications. Thanks for watching.